This happened 6 years ago, on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my high school life, graduation day. It still sends chills down my spine every June when I see other seniors celebrating their freedom, hugging each other, tossing caps in the air, oblivious to how fast things can turn ugly. Back then, I was a shy kid, not invisible exactly, but not exactly well known either. My name is Evan, and back then, I was just trying to survive 4 years of homework, rumors, awkward hallway run-ins, and crushes that never worked out. But by senior year, I'd finally found my rhythm. I had a decent circle of friends, good grades, and my college acceptance letter taped proudly to my bedroom mirror. All I had left to do was cross that stage and never look back. Graduation day was textbook perfect, clear skies, the smell of cut grass, parents packed into the bleachers with foam, cameras ready to embarrass their kids for the next decade. Our principal's speech was corny, the way it should be. We all sat roasting under those cheap polyester gowns, doodling on each other's caps, or secretly texting under the fold of the program. If you told me then that half of what happened that day would be buried by the school board, I'd have laughed in your face. Anyway, back to the beginning. The ceremony dragged on forever. By the time they called my name, my thighs were numb from the hard plastic chair. I shook the principal's hand, forced a grin for the camera, and shuffled back to my seat with my diploma folder clenched, so tight my knuckles turned white. Afterwards, the field behind the football bleachers became an ocean of hugs and selfies. Everyone was making summer plans, promising to visit before college split us apart for good. It was a high school movie ending, exactly what we all wanted. It wasn't until later, after most people had left for dinner parties or beach bonfires, that things got strange. My best friend Jonah and I were two of the last ones hanging around the field, waiting for his older brother to come pick us up. Our ride was late, so we wandered behind the bleachers to smoke one last celebratory joint. Stupid, I know, but we were feeling invincible. Behind the bleachers was mostly just an overgrown patch of weeds, old equipment sheds, and the chain link fence that separated the field from a strip of woods. The place was quiet enough that we could hear the cicadas humming over our own heartbeat. Jonah was halfway through a story about how he almost got caught cheating on a biology final when I noticed someone standing by the fence. At first, I thought it was just a parent looking for their kid, but when I squinted, I realized it was another student, or at least he was wearing a cap and gown like us. I nudged Jonah. He turned and squinted too, then let out this nervous chuckle. "Yo, Evan, is that Rick?" Rick Palmer was this scrawny, greasy-haired kid we barely ever talked to. He transferred to our school junior year, didn't do any clubs, barely spoke, and always smelled like burnt matches. Rumor was he'd once hacked the district's Wi-Fi so he could play games during online testing. Nobody really cared though, he kept to himself. "Hey, Rick," Jonah called, waving like an idiot. "Congrats, man, you lose your parents or something?" Rick didn't move. He just stood there behind the fence, half in shadow, half lit up by the orange stadium floodlights. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I swear his eyes were locked right on me. Jonah was still laughing when Rick slowly raised his right hand and pointed, not at Jonah, but directly at me. "Dude, that's creepy," Jonah muttered, elbowing me. "What's he doing?" Before I could answer, Rick lowered his hand and started pacing along the fence line, never looking away. It was like he was trying to find a gap to squeeze through. We heard a car horn then, Jonah's brother pulling into the parking lot. We both turned our heads for maybe 2 seconds. When we looked back, Rick was gone. "Whatever, man, let's bounce," Jonah said, suddenly in a hurry. I didn't argue. We jogged to the lot, laughing it off. Just Rick being a weirdo. I wish that was all it was. That night, my parents threw me this lame little backyard cookout. Uncles, cousins, neighbors I didn't even know the names of. Lots of handshakes, a cake with "Congrats, Evan" in neon blue icing, cheap paper plates piling up with half-eaten burgers. At around 10, after the grown-ups left, I slipped down to the basement with Jonah and 2 other friends, Cassie and Marco. We were supposed to crash there after a horror movie marathon, our own little tradition. I kept checking my phone between movie scenes, half expecting Rick to text me something weird. But there was nothing. At around midnight, Jonah and Cassie dozed off. Marco was half awake, scrolling TikTok. I decided to step outside for fresh air. My parents' house backed onto the same woods that bordered the school's field. Small town perks. I leaned against the porch railing, listening to the breeze rustle the branches. Then I heard it, a soft rattling like metal scraping against metal. It was coming from the far corner of the yard where our old chain-link fence met the woods. I squinted through the dark. There, near the fence, a shape moved, a pale face catching the glow from our back porch light. It was Rick, standing completely still, just like behind the bleachers. My mouth went dry. I whispered, "Hey." But my voice cracked like a little kid's. He didn't answer. He just pressed his palm flat against the fence, then curled his fingers through the links, shaking it slightly. I stepped backward until my shoulder blades hit the siding of the house, my legs locked in place. I should have gone inside, locked the doors, called the cops. Anything but stand there frozen. But I couldn't. Rick leaned forward until his forehead touched the fence. Even from 20 yards away, I could see he was smiling. Not a friendly smile. The corners of his mouth twitched like it hurt him to do it. Behind me, Marco yelled something about pizza rolls. When I turned back to the fence, Rick was gone. I didn't sleep that night.